Everybody has the handouts. Nobody's looked at anything?
You guys didn't cheat and look at any of the handouts yet, did you? The first one probably won't work anymore. Normally you don't get it ahead of time. Good morning. My name is Crystal Morris, and as he introduced me, I do work at Towers Watson, and I heard some of those more recruiting related and technical questions come across that I cannot answer. I unfortunately don't know our recruiting process yet. I've been with Towers Watson for an entire 4 weeks. This is my 4th Monday there. And as he mentioned, my degree is in sociology, which means I understand how people work and think. It's kind of like a psychology degree. And then I focus more on leadership development, making sure people have the tools and experiences they need to grow within a firm. And I am so excited to be here because I oversee our, what we call associate resource communities, which are like affinity groups. I don't know if you've heard of those, but in big corporations, they have kind of these networking groups. And one of the groups that we'd like to establish is a group for African Americans, but unfortunately, we don't have enough. So it's exciting to be here to see all of you who are interested in actuarial sciences, because Towers Watson needs a lot more diversity. And if you want to work in a big professional services firm, there are certainly opportunities from a diverse perspective. We don't have enough of you. So it's really exciting to see all of you here. My topic is navigating business, so I know some of those questions might come up about what exams to take and all that good stuff. I'll probably have to refer you to a recruiter. If you want to send me your resume, great, but I can't answer any of those questions because I'm just not familiar enough with the process yet. But I'll be happy to take your questions and get them answered from a recruiter, so I do have cards that I'll give to you. I wanted to start off with, can you follow directions, but some of you probably have seen it already. And if you read the last line, then you kind of know that there's a little kicker to it. But the reason that I like starting off with this exercise is because in business, oftentimes it's really, not oftentimes, all the time, it's really important to follow directions and to listen to what people tell you. And just like if you were going to take the GMAT or the GRE and they were giving you a specific word problem, you'd read all the directions before you started. So this is an example that tells you to do 19 things, and then the very last thing says, now that you finish reading carefully, do only sentences 1 and 2. Most people do everything here, and then they read the last thing, they're like, oh. So it's really important in business. One of the key things I can to tell you is that it's really important to read very thoroughly what the directions say and what people are trying to tell you, and then make sure that you understand. So we're going to talk about a lot of things for the next couple of hours. Maybe I'll do a different opening exercise. I don't know. That actually was going to be our opening exercise, but I think I'll skip it, and I have a few others that we'll do. So we're going to talk about who Towers Watson is. How many of you have actually heard of Towers Watson? Yeah? Big company? Yeah, we have about 14,000 employees. How have you guys heard of it? Because you're in actuarial sciences, so you know who kind of the big companies are. So you've heard of Mercer.
Right.
And then who's another one? Aon Hewitt.
Right.
You've heard of those? Who are some others?
New York Life.
New York Life. Prudential? Okay. Liberty. Say that again?
Allstate.
State. Okay, so now it helps me understand what are the possibilities for where you all could work. Because I only really think about the big professional firms. So we'll talk about navigating in a diverse marketplace. We'll go over some case studies. We'll talk about communication and communication styles, and we'll talk about team building. So we're not going to talk too technical. I think you guys have some other really cool topics between now and Thursday. These are going to be more fun and more personal about your own development and how you communicate and who you are. So we won't talk too technical. So Towers has 14,000 associates, and we're in about 37 countries. And Asia Pacific, Europe, Latin America, North America, and I have global responsibility, so I oversee global diversity and actually leadership development. So we have diversity councils across the different regions, APAC, Europe, Latin America, and North America. And what's really exciting is we're really thinking strategically about what do we do about diversity? How do we hire more diverse people just like yourselves? How do we make sure that we retain and develop people like yourselves? Because oftentimes, and I do come from Ernst & Young, and they have the same issue, oftentimes when we get people like you in the door, what happens is something happens between the first year and the 5th year where people become kind of disenfranchised and decide they want to go leave and look at just, I don't want to say regular companies, but just industry companies like Georgia Pacific or Coca-Cola or something like that. And namely, it's because of the hours. As he mentioned, there are a lot of hours. Now, you're not working until 10 o'clock every night. In accounting, it's a little bit different, but you're working on huge clients, big Fortune 500, 1,000 companies who have a lot of needs, and sometimes there are pretty serious demands. So it's something you have to really think about what kind of work-life balance do I want? And how do I communicate what my needs are up front? And how do I bring those needs to the table so that people really understand how to help me achieve that kind of work-life balance? The other thing is that there are not a lot of diverse managers in leadership positions. So the higher you get, the less you see people that look like you. That becomes very difficult for people who are used to either being in classrooms like this, right, or just are used to being around people that are like themselves. And that's why we're going to spend some time talking about communication, because navigating in business really involves communicating with people that don't always look like you, or talk like you, or have the background that you and I come from, or have the experiences that we come from. Okay. So our expertise are in benefits, talent and rewards, and risk and financial services. So some of you guys probably focus on some of these areas. I'm more in the talent and rewards area. That's where we do communication and change. That's where diversity sits, talent management and rewards, HR function and effectiveness. So that's the HR side. Then on the benefit side, it's healthcare, group benefits, international consulting, retirement. And on the risk side is insurance consulting, investment consulting, software solutions, capital markets, corporate risk advisory, and brokerage. And if you ask me with any of that stuff, man, I couldn't tell you. I only know that purple box. I'm getting to know the yellow and the blue box, but right now I only know the purple box. And then we do some M&A activity, mergers and acquisitions. So when companies are trying to buy other companies or merge, we help them talk through some of that due diligence. So clarity through perspective. Our focus is on giving you the clarity to make the right decisions. So we look at people, financial, and risk issues. So any company that's going through any type of change, looking to change out their benefit structure, we do a lot of executive compensation. We really look at real world issues for companies and really help them solve that. So people always say Towers Watson, has the smartest people, and I will say in my 3 weeks there that there's some really smart people. And they hire smart people. So those test scores will be important. The GPA will be important. Those are some things you want to keep in mind as you're looking to work with a large company. Any questions so far? Yes.
Yes, will you be provided with a copy of this presentation?
I would be happy to send it to Barry and make sure that he gets it to everybody. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about kind of navigating business in a diverse marketplace. So if you think about one Earth and 100 people, the mix of those people would look like this. 52 would be female and 48 male. 30 would be white and 70 non-white. So I'm going to pause there because a lot of people are still saying minority, minority, minority. But if you think about 100 people, 30 would be white and 70 would be non-white. So look at who would be the minority in that situation. 30 would be Christian and 70 non-Christian, 90 would be heterosexual and 10 homosexual, 57 Asian, 21 European, 14 from the Americas, and 8 African. So that's a sampling of what 100 people would look like in the world, which means if you think about multiplying that and ending up with 14,000 people in a company, or like in Ernst & Young, 100,000 people in a company, it should look pretty mixed and pretty diverse. And the more that Latinos are coming into the United States, the more that people are working longer, there'll be a lot more opportunities for people to focus on retirement and savings and investing. So there's a lot of opportunity for people like yourselves. So diversity at Towers Watson, it's the mix of our people, including national cultures, subcultures within countries, sexual orientation, disability, generations, ethnicity. It's all that stuff that make us who we are. It's what makes the world kind of what it is. But inclusion is how we make that mix work. So it's bringing all those things, the gender, ethnicity, and national cultures, bringing all those together in one company, one room, one organization, one team, and making it work. That's the part that some companies don't do well. You might have diversity, right? So you might have some women, you might have some ethnic diversity, you may have different cultures or different ways people think, but all those people may not feel included. Okay, so maybe they're not in the meeting, maybe they're not on the phone call, maybe they're not invited to the golf course on Saturday afternoon. So the perfect picture is when you have diversity and inclusiveness, which means those people feel included, they're part of the community, they're able to perform at their best, they're led well, they're managed well, they feel a part of the team. And so at Towers, that's what we're working on right now, is how to make sure we bring in people like yourselves and then make sure we're bringing your full talents to bear. So making sure that you feel included, and inclusiveness is really important. So embedding a sustainable, inclusive culture in the way we operate will enable our people to achieve their potential and make a difference wherever they come from and whatever their characteristics. This culture will enable Towers to deliver high-quality service to our clients, create competitive advantage, and drive market leadership. The reason that this is important is because our clients want us to have diverse teams. So when we're going out to Coke and when we're going out to Bank of America, they don't want to see 10 white males. They want to see diversity. So it's really important as a company that we understand how to bring those talents into a team and make things work together so that Coca-Cola is happy, so that Bank of America is happy. So it's really important that we understand how to do that and we get that right. So I'm going to get you to take a quick little test. You're going to have 1 minute to do this. You're going to be looking at the screen. So the instructions are that you are going to read the word, not focus on the color, but you're going to read the word as you see it. That's not I always say the direction's wrong. You're going to read the color of the word. You're going to read the color of the word. Okay? You have 1 minute to read the color of the word. Go ahead. Out loud, I'm sorry.
Red, blue, green, yellow, pink, black, orange, brown, purple, red, green, pink, blue, black, yellow, purple, brown, red, pink, orange, pink, blue, black, yellow, green, orange, red, brown, purple, black, blue, yellow, green, red, brown.
Okay. Same instructions for this slide. Read the color of the word.
Brown, green, pink, red, yellow, green, brown, orange, pink, orange, yellow, red.
Okay, so you're struggling a little bit. Why is this a little bit harder?
Because you read the word first before you read the word.
I hear because you read the, say that again?
Because you see the word before you see the color.
So you see the word before you see the color, okay? Why else is this hard?
Do you identify
Sometimes I can't speak.
the word and
You're identifying with the word, right? And so this is from Stroop. It's a psychologist who established this in about the 60s. And basically, it talks about word associations and how our minds are, at an early age, we learn our alphabet, we learn our numbers, we learn our colors. And so it's word association. We already know what it looks like. So it's hard to undo what it doesn't look like, right? And that same thing exists in companies, that we make a lot of assumptions. We have biases. We all have them. I have a few, a strong few. And so we all have biases, and we bring those to our workplaces all the time. So we may think, we may make an assumption about the woman in curlers at the grocery store. That may or may not be true, right? Right? So we make word associations about everything, about people, about different situations. And so what you have to do sometimes is when something doesn't look like what you think it already is in your head, you're trying to unlearn this behavior that you've really been socialized to have. And so that's really important to understand, is that sometimes the associations you have that you bring into your company or your school or your workplace or wherever you go, you have to learn to be open-minded, because all associations you already have in your head may not be the case, okay? And so you have to really understand that when you're navigating business, that's important. So let's talk about differences, because as you think about unlearning that behavior, sometimes it involves getting to know people at a different level and trying to undo those assumptions that you may already have in your mind. So when someone's walking down the hall in the classroom or on campus, and you're thinking about what you already know about them and what you can see. This is a picture of an iceberg, and you all know that with an iceberg, you normally can see things at the top, but you can't always see what's underneath the water. So someone's walking down the hall, you pretty much can tell if it's a male or female. I know things have changed a little bit, but you pretty much can tell. You pretty much can try to decide somebody's race. You can try to determine probably plus or minus 3 to 5 years someone's age. Maybe you can think about what language they might speak, and you can definitely tell if they're physically able by, arms, legs, and things like that. But then it's about what's beneath the surface that you don't know, and a lot of that means talking and asking questions and getting to know people so that you get to know what's beneath the surface. So if you think about what's beneath the surface, it's their social status, their culture, their work experience, their years that they've been in school, how they think, their education, their likes, their dislikes, their talents. It's all the things that you would have no clue if you just saw them walk down the hall and never said, hello, how are you doing? Do you want to have lunch? Let's sit down and talk. And oftentimes when you come into corporate America, you end up kind of gathering around people that look like you or that are in your same department. And sometimes you have to spread yourself across others that may not look like you, that may come from different places, that may think differently, may learn differently, that may have gone to a different school, or go across to another department to get to know people. If you get to know people in different departments, they can help you out. So that's really important to understand. So what do we know about someone versus what do we assume? So oftentimes we make a lot of assumptions about people and things and situations. And so the message here is that it's really important in business to get beneath the surface, find out what's going on about somebody's skills or their style or just what kind of music they like or what they like to read, all those things that you wouldn't know unless you had a conversation. So communicating with people is really important. What questions do you have? Anything about this so far? Okay. So what are some of the things that you can do to prepare to work in a diverse and global workforce? Global meaning people are from all over the place. How many of you were born in the United States? That's a small number. See that? You never know that, right? So the rest of you were born outside of the United States. See, that's amazing. In one room, that's amazing. So the world is so global that, and you all have different life experiences, that it's important to understand how your life experiences frame how you view a situation. How many of you grew up with 2 parents in your household? That's a good number. Yeah, that's a good number. You have to have real conversations, build real relationships with people with different experiences and viewpoints than yourself. And you're never going to know their viewpoints unless you get to know them, right? Work on projects with people from different backgrounds and work styles than yourself. It takes all kind of different styles to really make a good team. If everybody thinks like you and communicates like you're never going to come up with a good solution, right? So you really need that person that challenges you and says, well, let's think about it this way, or let's try to solve it a different way. Because if everyone thinks like you, you're not going to get anywhere. Ask more questions and listen more. Appreciate the differences that everyone brings to your school. And then attend a variety of events so that you may not normally attend. So if someone that's different from you, let's just say they're Italian, I can't think of anything right now, but let's just say they want to invite you to a cultural event. Don't be afraid to go because you think that no one there is going to look like you or be like you. Go and explore and figure out what their lifestyle is like and what their culture is like and what their traditions are like, and then invite them to something of yours. Because that's the way you get to know people who are different from you, and you're going to work around people that are different from you more than you're not. So getting to know that early on, I always felt like I wanted to go to a HBCU, a predominantly black college, and then I kept thinking, but I wonder if I would have been in culture shock had I gone, because everyone would have looked like me for 4 years. Then you get out and it's like, where do they all go? Because when you go to work, right, they don't look like you. So I still wanted to have the experience because it just seems like such a cool experience, but I always wondered if people end up in culture shock when they get into the work world, because it's so different. I am oftentimes the only black woman on my floor, the only black woman in a meeting, the only black woman as a director. So, and that's been probably for the last 5-6 companies I've been with. So it gets very lonely when you get into corporate America and move up the ranks. So don't expect, especially you black males, don't expect to see a lot of other black males in your organization unless they're in this room or majoring in actuarial sciences just like you are. I'm telling you, you will see so few. I look at it this way. It's cool that, because when I was at Ernst & Young, people would always say, but I want to see a black partner. I'm like, be the first one. You might not always see that person. So be the first one, be the second one. The black partner just retired, so now be the second one. So these are some of the keys that I have on kind of preparing to go out in that world and just being exposed to just people that are just very, very different. So some of the critical skills that recruiters are looking for outside of the technical stuff, I'm only going to focus on the soft skill stuff, is mobility. You should be able to want to move somewhere. Now, y'all may not want to live in Kentucky. Is anybody in here from Kentucky? Okay, good. So you guys may not want to move to Kentucky, but any big company is going to expect that you're going to move somewhere at some point. It's great when someone's career can be in Atlanta or North Carolina or wherever you might come from the whole time. I'm born and raised in San Diego, California, and I'm here in Atlanta. I've moved 7 times. I've lived in 6 states. I worked for Intel, I worked for Caterpillar, I worked for Time Warner Cable, and they moved me all the time. When they want you to do something, when they want to promote you, they want you to be able to move. My mom still lives in California and San Diego. So you have to be able to move away from, I'm going to send you guys this presentation so you don't have to worry about trying to copy everything. So you need to be mobile. That's what mobility means. You need to be mobile and feel free to move. And you will have to make those decisions even after you have a family. And that's when it becomes tough. So now you're married with 2 kids and they're like, oh, you're doing so great in Atlanta. We want you to run our Latin America team. And you're like, okay, I have a wife and 2 kids or a husband and 2 kids. What do you do now? And sometimes when you're making that decision, of course, it's not just about you. It's about what's best for your family. So really think about, and a lot of times there are some huge monetary rewards that can come with being mobile. I almost took a job in Singapore with Credit Suisse. You probably have heard of them, that big bank. And like the first $100,000 that you make is tax-free. So it's like you go over there and it's almost like you don't even have to pay taxes on your money. Then they're giving you like a corporate apartment, so then you don't have rent or mortgage, and it's just like, well, shoot, all my money is mine. So there's some really good lucrative opportunities when you are mobile, especially if you want to go overseas. So think about that as well. The ability to team. When you're an actuary, it depends on what you're doing, but oftentimes you're a part of a team that's going out to a company. You guys might be spending a lot of time together. You'll be working with these same people a lot in a particular account. And the ability to team, meaning get along with others, understand people's personalities, understand how to deal with conflict, is important. So it's talking through that conflict, understanding your differences, understanding how to meet in the middle, understanding how to disagree but commit to the cause. Really being able to team is important. Appreciating differences is important. Even though sometimes we focus on our similarities, oftentimes focusing on our differences is okay too. So being able to appreciate that someone grew up in a different country and has some different expectations, being able to appreciate that is important. Flexibility, and this looks different for everybody, but flexibility might mean, well, I normally go to Bible studies at 6 on Wednesdays, but there's 2 Wednesdays a week where the team works until 8. So either I figure out who's going to cover for me so I can go, or those are the 2 days I might not be able to go. So it's the flexibility in helping your team understand, here are my personal needs. I'll work late on Mondays, but I can't work late on Fridays because that's when I go have dinner with my parents. Whatever it is, but it's the flexibility to understand that, and the communication that involves that. Presentation skills, and this is where our folks get a little shy. Public speaking is the #1 fear. Even above snakes and airplanes, public speaking is the #1 fear. My heart palpitates every time I get up in front of a room, but then it goes away after about 2 minutes. But not everybody likes to get up in front of a room and present information. It's scary. You kind of feel like you have to know what you're talking about. You want to engage the audience. You don't want to be boring, blah, blah, blah. So learn these skills early, because the better you're able to do this. Now, I mean, interviewing is good practice, but it's not the same as standing up here and talking to you all. And interviewing is nerve-wracking as well. So the better able you are to present skills, to articulate an idea, to engage, to make eye contact with people, the better you'll be presented to move forward in an organization. I'm not going to say shy people don't get promoted, but what I will say is people who are shown that they have a personality, that are bright and that smile and that are friendly will be more likely to move forward in an organization than if you're shy. Now, believe it or not, I'm introverted. I score real high when I take assessments, like psychology assessments, and either you're introverted or extroverted. I score off the page as an I. So when I leave here, like I'll go home and shut the shades and turn on the TV and do all that kind of stuff because I'm introverted. I like being around my core group of friends, but I don't like being the life of the party and all out and social and people invite me to stuff. I'm like, I'm just going to stay on the couch and watch 20/20 and Dateline on Friday night. I'm cool. My job requires me to be extroverted. So you have to have that balance of when are you introverted and when is it okay, and when are you extroverted if you are introverted like myself. Relationship building. Professional services firms like Towers are very relationship oriented. So the person that's been around for 5 years and has been doing a great job may not get promoted as the person who has established all these friends and all these networks and is just really, really likable. And that's sad because a lot of times you want to get moved up based on your performance, but it has to be more than just your performance. You can't knock it out the box but not talk to people, right? So you can't be at your desk and just doing everything right and getting great performance scores and think that just doing that will move you forward. You have to get to know the person that you work for, all of your peers, different departments, because what you want is other people talking about how good you are. So if you're sitting at your desk and doing a real good job but other people aren't talking about it, then you're not known well enough. Okay, so relationships at work, so important, so important. Presence, that's kind of like, okay, I'm going to put it in our terms. That's kind of like having swag in a way. So it's like when you walk in the room, people are like, oh, there's Michael. You know, it's like people know that you kind of walked in the room, almost like you kind of command attention when you walk in the room. But you want that on the professional side, like, that Michael is always dressed sharp. You know what I mean? Having a nice suit on and always having the notepad and always being on time for the meeting. And that's what I mean by presence. It's like showing up and everybody's like, yeah, he's here, he or she is here to do business. That's what presence is. Kind of walking in and just understanding that, yeah, that person's on their game. Okay? Selfless. So that's the ability to give of yourself, not be selfish, especially when you're teaming, dealing with differences, dealing with flexibility. Selfless. So just the ability to give yourself and kind of going above and beyond to satisfy that client and or some of the internal needs, your specific boss or things like that. Then the ability to give and receive feedback. This is another place that we kind of struggle, and it's also a place that our leaders struggle as well. Some people think that we're going to go off if they tell us something bad. Okay? So what that means is they don't tell us, and we don't get feedback. And when I say we, I'm talking about black folks. We don't get feedback. I have sat across from a white manager who has said, well, I don't want to tell him that he needs to dress better, or I don't want to tell her that, you know, whatever, because I'm just afraid that she's going to get upset, and I don't want to upset her. And it's like, okay, but telling her would make her better, so why would you not tell her? So if you're not getting feedback, you have to ask for it. Now, when you're coming out of school, remember, you're getting grades, so you always know how you're doing. When you go into work, you don't ever know how you're doing. Ever, 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 except that one time of the year where you get your performance feedback. And that's not enough, right? Normally you get grades a lot more than once a year. So think about that when you go into work. You really don't know how you're doing. Now, on an engagement, if you're going out to Coca-Cola or Bank of America and you're on a team, I think there's team feedback given at an engagement. So maybe an engagement ends after 3 months. You might hear, oh yeah, you know, Kelly did a real good job on the team. So feedback, you have to be able to receive it, take whatever parts you think are real, and then you have to be able to give it as well. And giving feedback means not coming at somebody angry or upset or emotional. A lot of times we kind of can be emotional when we give feedback and or receive it, but it's about letting somebody know how something made you feel, not about them, but about the words or the actions. Does So that's kind of the difference in giving and receiving feedback. You have to be able to receive it, but you have to be able to give it as well, and that's really, really, really important. So the key to succeeding in today's global workforce lies in building cultural competence, which is defined as the ability to interact effectively with people from different cultures. And this is more important now than ever, just because we're becoming more of a diverse world. So what questions do you have so far? Yes.
About the feedback.
Yes.
If your manager doesn't give you feedbacks, will you recommend asking?
Absolutely. Ask for it. How am I doing? Hey, you know what? I did that big report 2 weeks ago, and I know it was accepted, but I didn't really hear anything. Can you tell me if it was okay, or is there anything I could do differently? Ask. Because they're not always going to feel comfortable telling you until you train them to tell you, until you train them that it's okay. All right. Let's look at this feedback in the multi-generational workforce handout.
Question?
Yes.
When you are talking about the ability to
Team.
is it something you learn or?
That's funny. Yeah, you're not taught how to. I mean, teaming is just getting along with people. It's the same thing you do with your cousins, your sibling. You know what I mean? It's like getting along in a household.
What if, like, you have a kind of personality in the first place, you're a little bit skeptical about the personality, and you want to watch them a little bit before opening up?
And actually, we'll talk about that in that's like the last thing we talk about is team building. But what you're talking about is kind of that thing where you're trying to figure out if you trust somebody yet, right? Like, that's natural. That's natural. Absolutely. You're kind of watching, like, how are they behaving? What can I tell them? What do I not tell them? Am I comfortable talking about my weekend with this person? Do I tell them, hey, I went and hung out at a party and I had some drinks, or do I mean, you have to figure out, how much you can trust somebody. That's very natural. Very natural. We'll talk about that. So below is a general approach to understanding the multi-general workforce. The reason this is important is because all of these workforces for the first time exist in the same company. So four generations are in the workforce for the same time ever. So the four generations are Gen Y and Millennial, which most of you probably fall into. I think you have to be over about 26 to be a Gen X, or 27. Gen X, which people are about 27 to 42, 43. Baby Boomer, 43 to about 60, and Senior and Silent, people that are 60 and over. So, helpful hints. If you are going to send your Baby Boomer manager some kind of communication, here's kind of just some feedback. They're uncomfortable with conflict and autocracy. They are somewhat formal communicators and prefer structured networking by mixing electronic with face-to-face. So whereas we probably will text and email and use all the social media stuff, people that are older, and I'm actually in Gen X, but I'm trying to still be a Gen Y. People that are over, I would say probably 50s and over, they really like that face-to-face communication. So if you're in a situation where you have an opportunity to have a face-to-face with your leader, if they're in an older generation, do that, just because they really appreciate having that face-to-face contact. So Gen X, which is my generation, casual and direct, somewhat skeptical and prefer electronic communication methods, so email, things like that. View of feedback is, I'm not sure if this is in my best interest, and they will challenge during feedback. So that's that generation that'll ask a lot of questions. So the strategies for communicating with the Gen X person is utilize all types of electronic tools. So online calendar, networks, conference calls, allow employees to collaborate and lead a discussion. That's for if you're a manager. So communicate perceived negative news quickly and refrain from sugarcoating the message. Use logic and reason. That's that directness, and we'll talk about that in a minute in communication styles. When people are direct, they want you to come at them direct. So the sugarcoating doesn't work for certain types of people. And then Gen Y, if people are working with yourselves, a lot of communication methods, meeting, email, conference calls. You want the opportunity to grow, so it says opportunity to broaden skills. Acknowledge talent, so that makes sure people that are working with you, they want to make sure that they acknowledge your talents and that you can learn, and that they can learn from you. and then keep conversations to a minimum and periodically follow up. So this is just something that I use when I do my feedback sessions with managers, and I thought that that might be interesting for you. Any questions before we start talking about communications? So now we're going to start talking about how you actually should communicate kind of in the corporate environment. Okay. Very simple little picture here. There's a sender and there is a receiver. The message is what's in the middle, the media. So you might be using Facebook, you might be using a conference call, you might be using just a telephone, you might be using an email, but that's kind of the message in the middle. And then notice that kind of what connects everything is feedback. So feedback may look like, did you understand what I just said? Or, I'm not sure if, are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Feedback may be, I think I understood something you said, but I might be a little confused, so help me understand kind of, am I getting this right? So, someone's listening, someone's talking, but the feedback and the continuous feedback is really important to make sure that you guys are understanding each other. That's important in the corporate environment. So some of the things that happen that prevent people from communicating well is that the language and tone may be misinterpreted. When I say language, I don't mean language barrier like different dialects or accents, but that the language, meaning the words that you are using, and the tone may be misinterpreted. And tone for us is sometimes an issue. I have a little bass in my voice, so if I, it's almost like I put on my, I have to say this white girl voice sometimes when I'm on conference calls, because if not, I can have some bass in my voice and it can sound mean. And I'm not mean, but I can sound mean and someone can hang up the phone and think that I'm mean. Remember how you just kind of make assumptions based on just what you see at the surface? So sometimes I have to kind of, yeah, okay, great, kind of take my pitch up so that people don't think I have too much tone in my voice. Other barriers to effective communication, organizational slang and acronyms. There are so many acronyms in corporate America, it's absolutely ridiculous. And sometimes there's just organizational slang or terms that people use, and when you first join a company, you don't know what it means. Know that that's there, and that you'll just get used to it and you'll end up understanding what all those acronyms and slang are. Trust levels are low, causing individuals not to share information. So something that you just mentioned on kind of teaming is you don't trust everybody when you first get into a company. You don't know what their motivations are. You don't know if they're there to help you develop, or you don't know if they want you to succeed. Sometimes your peers applied for your job and you didn't know it, so they're like, oh, why did she get the job? And you're trying to prove yourself. It's all kind of like drama going on at work sometimes. So sometimes the trust levels are low, and you may not be willing to share information, and the lack of sharing information is a barrier to effective communication. Sometimes there are differences in personality styles. Some people may be more direct, more indirect. Some people may be more talkative versus quiet. So depending on your type of personality, that may be a barrier to communicating well. Sometimes the departments are focusing just on themselves and they don't think about the needs of others. So I remember I was talking about being selfless. Sometimes you have to think about the needs of others. So sometimes departments are so inward focused and they're siloed that they're not understanding what the big picture of the whole company is. And quite honestly, it's kind of like a ship. If the ship sinks, everybody's going down. So if the company fails, everybody's going down. So when one department is just so focused on themselves and they're not thinking about the whole company, that actually isn't positioning the company for success. And the last is body language, the nonverbal. So it's sitting across the conference table in a room and you're sitting like this. What are you telling somebody? Say that again? What does it mean?
Not listening to you.
Then maybe that you're not listening.
I'm resistant to what you're saying.
It could be meaning that you're resistant, that you're upset, that and it's so funny because that's just a comfortable position for me. But if you're in a meeting and you're with people for the first time, you're probably going to want to just have your arms loose so that people don't read that body language from you. They don't think that you're closed-minded, because that's kind of what it's saying, even if it's not true. Other reasons why communication fails, that there are no clear expectations of individuals. There's no ongoing feedback. So remember I talked about how important the feedback is. There's not enough information, and this happens. Sometimes, I will never forget, I just started a job, and I think I'd been there 2 or 3 weeks, and someone was like, oh yeah, John handles that. Let's just talk to John. I'm like, where does John sit? What is John's last name? How do I get in touch with John? I mean, they just make assumptions that you're just going to figure everything out. I'm like, I don't know who John is. So sometimes a barrier to communication is just not enough information. So when you first begin a job, asking a lot of questions, trying to find out who are the key individuals I need to know. What's their first name? What's their last name? And one of the things I'm experiencing now at Towers Watson, because everybody is so highly intelligent and no one ever makes spelling errors. So I think I spelled a woman's name wrong in an email the other day. People are quick to tell you that you made a mistake. Quick. So it's important to kind of ask the right questions to get information correct, so that if you are communicating something, you're communicating the right information. And sometimes you're relying on someone else to feed it to you. So let's just say you're assuming that they gave you all the right information, but you don't know, because you don't know anything other than what they told you anyway. So then you're sitting it down, they're like, oh no, they're not going to be this, they're going to be that. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me that. So asking questions and doing that feedback is important, because you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. Okay? I know that sounds crazy, but you don't know what you don't know. And so other barriers to communication, the impacted individuals are not always involved in the communication. So, for example, I'm in human resources. Oftentimes we're trying to figure out how to save the world. And we don't often ask the people that are being impacted by the decisions that we make. So we're trying to think about a new leadership development program, but we're not involving the leaders to ask them what they want. So sometimes it's important to involve the people who are being impacted by the communication you're sending out, or the message. I mean, it would be the same in a family situation, in a relationship. You're trying to put together a family reunion, or figure out what the family wants to do before you put everything together. So it's really important to make sure you involve other people. So some tips on how to communicate better. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Does anyone know who made that phrase? Who coined that phrase? He actually just passed away. Stephen Covey. Is that what you were going to say?
7 habits of highly effective.
Exactly. That is one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Seek first to understand and then be understood. So what that means is, first try to figure out what the other person is saying. So seek first to understand that other person's point of view. Put yourself second, and then make sure that you're understood. But when you're communicating, put that other person first. Listen with your eyes and heart as well as your ears. So that's where you're really, of course, this is kind of face-to-face, but this is where you're being observant, so it's looking for body language. And then you're trying to feel the place that person is coming from, whether it's anger, whether it's happiness. So listen with your eyes and your heart. So if you're sitting in a classroom, if you're sitting in a meeting, if you're having a dialogue with someone, use more than your ears to listen, is basically what this is saying. And then take responsibility for communication. Everybody owns a piece of communication. There's always a listener, there's always a receiver, and we always play both roles at some point. So make sure you're taking responsibility for the things that you say, how you say them, and it's so much about how you say them in the work environment. And just making sure that you're understood. Okay? So for listening, if you're the receiver, stop talking and tune in. Don't assume you know what is coming. I used to cut people off all the time because I just swore I could finish their sentences. And finally, this was earlier in my career, finally one of my managers said, will you stop cutting me off? And I never did it again after that, because I realized I was always trying to finish the sentence. Demonstrate your willingness to listen. And then listen to learn and learn to listen. So listening skills will be really important when you're in the work environment. Listening to directions people are giving you, listening to how they feel, listening to how they're giving you instructions, and then you have to now go off and do something. And oftentimes you all can see the same thing or get the same instructions, but all go off and do something different. And that's because, and I'll have an exercise later that demonstrates something like that, but that's because we all are socialized differently and that we're thinking different things. So barriers to listening. Thinking the subject is boring, like some of you do today. You're taking naps, kind of dozing off while we're talking. Criticizing the speaker's delivery. Sometimes when you criticize the speaker's delivery, you're not engaged and you're not tuned in, so you're not really focusing. Letting emotional triggers get in the way. This happens a lot in feedback. Sometimes we can be defensive about what someone's trying to tell us. And so oftentimes those emotional triggers get in the way, and then you're so emotional about something that was just said to you that you've now tuned out the feedback, and it's really important feedback that's going to help enhance your career. So becoming less emotional is really important. faking attention. Sometimes you act like you're really listening and you're not, but none of you guys are doing that now, right? And then tolerating distractions. And I will tell you, the phones, the iPhones, the Blackberries, some companies tolerate them and some companies don't. They're just like, put your Blackberries away while you're in a meeting. So it's important to understand what the rules are. If you're sitting in a meeting with your peers and your boss and you're on your BlackBerry, it could send a very negative message. So I would be careful about doing that. All right. Exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so I think we have enough. So I'm going to hand you all a card that you will keep face down. You've already had preview to another exercise, no preview to this one. So keep this face down. And when I tell you to turn it over, I will give you instructions on what to do with your cards. This will require you to get up, so those of you who are napping will have to wake up. Okay, everybody has a card in front of them. Your instructions are that you have 1 minute. So first, don't share your card with anybody. Don't peek at your neighbor's card and don't talk. Those are the instructions. Now, you have 1 minute to turn your card over and count the number of F's that you see on the card. When you're done, just turn it back over and keep that number in your head. Go. Alrighty, the minute is up. You all should have a number in your head. How many of you received the card that had 4 F's on it? Okay, let me have those of you that saw 4 go stand up and go. Take your card with you. Don't share it with anyone. Don't talk to anyone. And go stand in this my left hand corner. How many of you received a card that had 5 F's on it? Okay, so you guys get up. Why don't you come actually more this way? I'll line it up going that way. And go to the right of them. Anybody that had the card with 5 F's, go to the right of them. Okay, how many of you got a card? Hopefully you all took your cards and don't share it with anybody. How many of you guys got the card that had 6 F's on it? Okay, so you guys stand up and go to the right of them. You guys go ahead and move down a little bit. This is so fun. How many of you guys got the card with 7 F's on it? Okay, so just 3. 7. Okay, take your cards and go to the right of them. How many of you received a card with 8? Do y'all know your number? Y'all have to get up for one of these groups. How many of you got the card with 8 F's on it? Okay, did I not call a number? So 8, go ahead and go to the right, so by the clock. 3, okay, so then come stand right next to me. Take your cards, don't say a word. Oh, this is wonderful. Don't share your card with anyone. Don't talk. It's a big secret. Okay. So, come with me. She saw 3, and let me have someone that saw 8. Gentleman with the glasses. Let me have you come up. Can I have some water? Thank you. So, she has a card with 3. And he has a card with 8. I'm going to ask them to switch cards, read each other's card, and see if they see anything different.
I see 8.
You see 8 on the card that had 3. Okay.
8F.
And what do you see? You see 4. Okay, so now you're a part of this group because you see 4. And then you're going to go back with your 8. So, huh? You were a 3 group? I thought she was the only one that stood up for 3.
Oh,
You're 4. Okay. So now she saw 4 on the same card that he saw 8 on. So now she's a part of the 4 group. He's going back to his 8 group. Now, I want all of you in the room to switch cards with someone else. Anybody in the room, and then count your new card.
same number.
From the same group?
Anybody in the room. Everybody got to switch.
We have 8.
Yeah, we had 8. And you want to switch?
You sure? Yeah.
Yeah, how is that one? All right, you good?
So I want to hear if you're seeing anything different. Yes. You see 8? Okay, so now go ahead and go over to the 8 group. You see 8. But you were what number before? 6. Wow, interesting.
I see 6.
Okay, so you just went from 4 to 6? Okay, so now you're there at 6. You're still 4. Come on back over to your 4 group. Okay. 4 group. 5 now. Okay, come over here. Okay, go over to 8. Go over to 8.
Where's 6?
6 is right here. Okay.
5.
Okay, I think you stay right about where you are. So, I'd like someone who sees 8 now to tell me what the strategy is that you use to find the 8. So, in the blue shirt here.
Thank you.
Probably, I just look through it and only when I see F.
Any other strategies that you use to get to 8? Yes, in the back.
I pronounce the word.
You pronounce the words? Okay, so you actually pronounce the words. Anything else that you guys did differently?
Same.
You actually pronounce the words. So let's everybody try that. As a matter of fact, let's just read it out loud. All right, so we're going to read it out loud. Finished, 1. Files, 2, are the result of 3, years of 4, scientific 5, study carefully 6, combined with the experience of 7, many years of experts 8.
So we have the same card?
You all have the same card. And we had 3 Fs, 4 Fs, 5 Fs, 6, 7, and 8. How is it possible that you could all have the same thing and come up with so many different responses? So it sounds like the 2-letter word of got most of you. Is that right? And why?
Not looking carefully.
Or how does it sound?
Doesn't sound like the F ending.
It sounds like a V phonetically. V is in Victor. And so that's why it's easy to overlook, because in your head, you already know what an F sounds like. And so see how easy it is to overlook? This is called blind spots. And so this exercise is about how easy it is to just kind of have a blind spot, just like when you're driving and you look and it's like, where did that car come from? This is a blind spot. And blind spots happen with people at work. And just imagine if the F was a person. How would it feel to be an F as a person at work? Overlooked. Ignored. Exactly. All just because you have in your mind that certain way things sound or look, so you overlook something that's sitting right there in front of you. And this can happen. I've been an F at work before. I'm getting on the elevator and I'm sitting in front of people that I work with all the time, and I saw them later. I'm like, hey, I was on the elevator with you this morning. They're like, no, you weren't. I'm like, yeah, I heard your whole conversation about the weekend. And they didn't say a word to me. So sometimes your mind is so focused, and sometimes things are going on and you're thinking about whatever, and you can be that person that's overlooked if you're not careful. So this is about blind spots, and it's really important to kind of think about how this plays out at work. So let me collect your cards. Can I get your cards? Thank you. Okay. What did you guys think about that? You all can be looking at the same thing and see different things. All right, you guys can take your seats. So has anybody ever felt like they were overlooked? Has anybody ever been an F at school or in any situation before? Yes?
Yes.
What does that feel like?
Insignificant.
You feel insignificant?
In a way.
Okay. What about you down there? Did you say you had that experience?
Because I'm short.
Okay. Yeah. Oftentimes those F's can show up like anything, but it's that opportunity for you to be almost just non-existent in a situation. And you're like, well, why was I overlooked? How come they didn't think about me? How come they didn't talk to me? How come they didn't invite me to the party? How come they didn't invite me to the weekend gathering? So sometimes people have blind spots at work and they don't know they have blind spots. Sometimes our non-diverse leaders at work have blind spots. They don't understand how to give the feedback. They don't understand how to include you in the team because they don't necessarily appreciate differences. And there are a lot of people who are in leadership roles in companies that don't understand differences. They think the world is just perfect, and if I got the person on the team, then that's enough, and I don't have to give them feedback. And so it's important to understand that people do have blind spots, and we have to learn how to operate in a world where blind spots exist. Okay?
Question.
Yes.
So for somebody that has been overlooked before, so is presence the solution to that? You know, you mentioned presence, show up. You know, when you show up, people have to notice that you're
The solution, you know, that's a great question. The solution almost isn't one we can solve. It's other people understanding their blind spots. You know what I mean? How can you ignore our dark skin? We're in the room, we're on the elevator. How can you ignore it? It's other people understanding their blind spots. But helping people understand. So let's just say you have a situation and you know that your manager's taken 3 people out to lunch and you're not included. So the next time you hear about it, you might say, hey, I'd like to go to lunch with you the next time. It's making them understand that they're being exclusive or that they're overlooking you and you don't want to be overlooked. That makes sense? So that's the way to fix it. I mean, presence, you can be dynamic and wonderful, but if that other person's still not comfortable with you, there's not a lot you can do to change that until you make them more aware. Okay? That was a great question. All right, we're going to talk about communication styles. I think I have until 11, so I'm trying to make sure I'm on time. So this is DISC, D-I-S-C. And I know this was one of the things that in navigating business that I wanted to make sure got covered, which is all the different communication styles. So I am a driver, kind of dominant in the way that I project. And so, and dominant, what it shows up like is we like to win. We love the challenge. Like I love competition. I love games. Challenge me in words with friends. I'll beat you. We look for results. Emotions, anger, short fuse. That's not really me, but change, love change, conflict, willing to kind of fight for what you believe in, rules, love to break rules. I think rules are kind of meant to be broken. Some are not, but some are. We like to read the shorter version, so Cliff Notes, like to, get things done and read the short version. Talk on the phone short, that's not really me. My longest phone conversation ever, I swear, was in the 7th grade, 14 hours on the phone. We even went to sleep and woke up and were still on the phone. Talk to people direct while jumping to the next issue. And then office kind of status symbol. So a driver, the focus is on problems and solutions. So like to solve problems, like to initiate action, like to see things get done. And then kind of direct. So the director, the person that's giving directions and likes to kind of make things happen. So that's kind of what the D is. The I, how many of you think you're a D? So based on that description, kind of likes to get things done, kind of direct, loves change. How many fall in that category? So a few of you, okay? Good. And there's no right place to be, just asking. So the I is the influencer, the inspirational person, the interactive person that like to talk and be liked. They are always looking for people. They are very optimistic. They're not afraid of change. They do not like conflict. Okay, so that's the flight, run from conflict. I don't want to deal with the conflict. Rules, what rules? So kind of don't, they don't have to follow rules either. They like to read self-improvement books and fiction. They like long conversations. And if you walk into a person's office, their office will be filled with memorabilia of experiences. So all their pictures from their family vacations and their different trips and all the things they collect. They like to motivate others, and their focus is on people and relationships. How many of you feel like, and I wish I could have given you the assessment so you would actually officially know, but how many of you feel like you might be an I? Okay. And I expected that to be a smaller number because you all are more analytical by nature with the math and the actuarial sciences. So steady, stable, and amiable. So very kind of friendly. They like pace or activity level. They need to serve. They are looking for trust. They are non-emotional. No change. Let things just kind of be as they are. No change. They tolerate conflict. They follow the rules. They read fiction and nonfiction and people stories. They're warm. Lots of family snapshots and glue that holds the stick together, so it holds everything together. So they're kind of the people that want everybody to get along. How many of you think that you fall into the S category? Okay. And then the last one is C. So you're compliant, you're analytical, accuracy, you love procedures and rules, not love it, but that's your focus. You're an objective thinker. Your need is for accuracy. You strive on being, accurate. You're looking for precision. Your emotion that you evoke most of the time may be fear. You're concerned about change. You avoid feedback. You're by the book. You like technical journals. You're to the point on the phone. Kind of a straight line walk. In the office, you might see charts and graphs or to-do list. How many of you think you fall under the C factor? Now see, I thought that'd be a lot of you.
Some of them.
Combination?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a DC. I'm a DC, and I don't know where that C part comes from, but I'm a DC. So D is my dominant and C is my kind of backup. So let's talk about kind of what each of these mean. There's no best place to be. Every style contributes value. 25% of the people you meet are similar to you, but 75 are different. So that's kind of important to know as you're thinking about navigating in the work world. Okay, back. This is taken from comments from a survey, and I wanted to tell you the differences about what men and women are concerned most about in communication. So men tend to talk about, let me look at this screen, and this is from the UK, that's why you see the organizational spirit with it spelled with an S instead of a Z. Men tend to talk more about the business. So men at work will talk about international things, efficiency, cost, products and services, competitiveness, strategy, and that kind of applies to all men across all positions. But women, when they're at work, they talk about their personal experiences. They talk about recognition, training, fairness, respect, working hours, stress, pressure, working relationships, atmosphere, conditions. And so the difference between men and women are slightly bigger for if you're in sales. But I think it's just always interesting to see the differences between how women communicate at work or what their topic or focus is and what men talk about at work or what their focuses are. Because it's always very different. So let's talk about the value that each of these people bring to the team. The D, the I, the S, and the C. So the D, their desire is to win. So the value to the team, they're a self-starter. You don't have to give the D a lot of instructions. They can just put something together and start. They're futuristic, so they're always thinking kind of big picture, thinking about the vision. They're competitive, so they're going to do whatever they can to help the team win if the team's trying to win. They're innovative, so they have creative ideas, and they're very tenacious and very persistent. So that's the value that the D brings to the team, and then challenge-oriented. So the I, focus on people and relationships. They're the optimist. They're enthusiastic. They're creative, motivating, they have a sense of humor. So this will be the person on the team that if you're working late at night, they kind of keep things going, they're telling some jokes, they're a team player. They're the person that people probably gravitate to because of that kind of personality. They help negotiate conflict, and they're really good at putting together words. So kind of they are able to articulate ideas pretty well. So each of these has a value to the team, and you need all of them, really. The S is dependable. They work hard for a cause, and they're a great leader. They're a great listener. They're patient, logical. They finish the job, and they're loyal. You need that kind of person, too, on the team. So a great team has all four of these. Okay? And the C, and you definitely need a C, they're the objective thinker. So when people like myself are out there coming up with all these crazy ideas, the C is going to say, well, how would we do that? How would we make that happen? What would be the steps that we would take? Because oftentimes people come up with ideas, but then there's no way to execute on it, right? So they're conscientious, they have high standards, they define and clarify information. So this person would say, okay, let's talk about this, let's pause, let's figure out kind of where we are and how will we define the task. And so this person's kind of very detail oriented. They ask the right questions, they're diplomatic, and then of course the detail orientation. So it's really important that all of these are represented on a team. So I'm now going to count you off in fours and have you guys focus on a case study real quick so that you work together in groups. So let's start here. We're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2,
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2,
3.
1, 2,
3, 4. 1, 2, 4.
Worked out perfectly. So let's have the ones take their case study sheet and work on case study 1, but all the ones come over here. So just temporarily, you're going to get up and just work at a different seat. So all the ones up here, all the 2s down here in this corner, we'll have the 3s back here in this corner, and the 4s back here in this corner. So all you need is your case study sheet. So ones are right here in front of me. Are there more than like 5 ones? How many ones?
Oh, sorry. You're trying to tell me this one?
Find a way to see, maybe you could use that and turn those things around.
So an African American actually decides that she wants to use consulting.
So you're really doing a what would you do? So these are situations where you're just going to come back and talk to us about, and actually I want a spokesperson from each team. You're going to come back and present on how would you solve the issue and what questions would you ask?
Yeah, how many minutes do we have?
Take about 10 to 15. I don't know how much you'll need, but take about 10 to 15 minutes.
As a team, we're going to the ground and you know what the real concerns are. Any cases that we small, if I'm just coming here every day and I'll bring more money, the stress level is high. And there are no diverse managers that are support you. I'm going to tell you to communicate to each other, get assurance without having to
confidence
make it a company negative.
She doesn't want to participate. There is the choice. She also notices some of the reactions and items that they borrow that they have to
Human resources comes here to focus mostly about what is going on within your associates and just summarize it.
So let me.
From what I understand from this is that people are not working to the best of their ability, and they are not doing what the way they should do it. The reason is because maybe some of them are better off first outside.
Yeah, why force them to contribute if they aren't really there? So basically, what would you do? How would you resolve the situation where you have these international students that aren't feeling like a part? Like, what are some of the things you do? What are some of the solutions you would bring to that situation?
Make it not as diverse as they would like it to be. Stress level aside.
Basically,
So gain, like, and jump to a new life situation.
but it does say that she came to you with her concern. She may not want other people to know.
Someone else said.
Well, I mean, she had advice with her as an option.
You guys or you guys? Okay.
You can like find out if it's possible to adjust it. Also, like considering the importance that the person has to the company, she supports like 3 accounts that you definitely.
Iconography is very cultural. It's extremely cultural.
One like an elder is talking to you.
From my culture, you learn it. Like when you get different. So I would suggest that she try to understand more why they don't make the eye contact, and then try to convince them otherwise. That's one thing. Because then what has worked for me, like looking at and making eye contact with you plus respect, and you don't want to sound even with me. So by explaining that to them, understand why they don't make eye contact for them to do it. Suggest like what's the definition of avoiding to make eye contact. It's not really following. Yeah, try to understand from that explanation. Try to explain and to understand why they don't make it. And then explain
Why it's important. We have to work hard, but we need to come up with ways to help minimize the stress.
Now, we can all contribute to this, but this is our understanding. So, just basically try to weigh which one is more important between family and work. That's our summary. Work, family, important. Okay, so
in the middle of the day, have like a group lunch or something, just where it's just relaxed atmosphere, but you're still involved with your job. Yeah, or like a.
Yes, they're smart, but you don't really, they're afraid of stand up there and making mistakes. So it's just, the classroom culture where no one feels trapped, no one feels embarrassed, make mistakes, everyone's watching.
Let them understand that mistakes are okay. Like, it's just a part of going through class. Like, and no one goes through a whole class perfectly.
don't give us like so find a common ground. I don't know.
I shouldn't say like every. I guess everybody should be out of the well, I guess they should kick us out. Nobody should stay after.
Okay, so yeah, so
like after 7 or something.
so we understand what she has in mind. So then we want to.
But maybe the professor herself could also try to come across as more like friendly, I guess, like someone that would come across more understanding for the rest of the students, because sometimes you may have that professor where you feel like if you do something wrong that they're gonna like punish you for some odd reason, when really that's not gonna be the case, you know. So like the professor can work on just come across that way.
One thing I would suggest for this case would be, I mean, you know, they're constantly going to golf.
Yeah.
You go ask them,
And now it's relaxed.
golf. Oh, that's what I did this weekend too. I may take a few days.
Exchange culture.
You express that you'd like help as well.
Let me let
Invite you to come next time. So I know that's one thing I'll perceive as advice of sharing what you feel.
Everything is meant for business. It's through trying to understand what the result are, just try to understand the result, and then we have everything. All of the other stuff is just hypothetical. If it is, then
It's definitely less of like
if it's shiny, then
go about it that route.
why you try and get it team
Like because also like most of the time and like most of the time you find that in the work, like even in our personal life,
the pay increase.
breaking point where something big is about to happen. So instead of how focused on volunteer, you know, what is it, what lies ahead.
What does it mean to say she's been essentially the thing is, if you tell her, and she feels that, so you shouldn't, she wants to do like a lot of things, that might scare her off even more. If she's already thinking that she wants less, and then going to her and saying, oh, you know, you were in line for this thing, that might scare her off.
Well, actually, the first point that she raised was to try to convince her to find a balance. So this is just to support the first one.
And also like not to get a like if you are debating whether to stay at home, but then you find out that you are facing a big position at work, like you can find some leverage to be able to say, okay, well, since you consider me that much to be able to offer me this kind of position, this is where I am, you know, these are my needs. I wanna have a family, I wanna raise a family. But for me to be able to do this job in this company, I need some time off with my family as well.
Is that supposed to mean she's not aware that she's on track to become a senior consultant?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like she might know, okay,
You need to simply operate that way. Because sometimes they might do that because in the past they've had trouble with students participating before. So that's just something they do. Just go ahead and pick out a student. So for some it's scary, for some it's like, okay, like I don't like to do this, but I can do this.
That's normal.
Yeah, it's normal to come from
like hurt feelings, kind of. We don't want to tell her, you know, the work comes first. So we can, so I think the best thing I'm saying, they're all saying the same, like, you know, like suggested balance comes around. I think she suggested a wonderful idea of trying to tailor.
But how, like,
So this is what I'm doing so far. Okay,
PowerPoint, a letter, like, that's
very good idea.
I can imagine.
if they see that you are not paying attention, they will do that.
Yeah, when you pay attention, they call you to the board, solve the problem, you know, punish you. Elementary school, yeah, but not in high school. I think that's one of the reasons why most applicants shyness in them, because they're not able to come out, so they feel that the other way around maybe this new position can be tailored to her needs, because you know she's and also
I think I also met with them changing department or something.
yeah. So that's what I'm
So we talked, that's fine for all that information.
Oh, no, well,
We have
actually,
that stuff, so you can negotiate these things.
well, the best part is, they don't know that she's coming documented, so it's not enough to say, okay, we want more of this, so we have documents like her boss.
So we need to talk to her,
So actually, when you go to
That might
HR,
be
you
true
have like
because she's only talking.
documents, so not
Yeah.
petitions.
But we say, who else consider who else consider talking to her wife? So immediate personally
because he's probably the one that yeah, because they are friends.
No, I'm not mad.
Tries to watch it yourself. Just something to get over.
Points that we express.
Conversation, be self-elevated, start today or something, make a scene.
Like in their job, she works at home on Friday.
Yeah, but she will read off like a point and then
So they work with me that's something that we can
the HR, the HRM as against the immediate boss.
I would say like the person who promotes
So that should be your immediate
I would
boss.
say
want to remain at the company, so it will be beneficial to the company to like, really think about these
Okay.
so the person who would understand
I think
more
as long as they
about
see
your
that
situation,
you want to really be there, then they'll
And there is some part, they're still working right now. Yeah, the West Coast.
I feel like when you do everything to get on that social status with those guys, and they're rejecting you, then you think like, hey, this is shit. You haven't even taken the step to like try to
Anyone.
go to happy hour and go with guys. And that's your fault. Right? They're not gonna, they're not gonna take.
We're really telling her,
You have
isn't this, we're telling
Okay, let's take a couple last minutes to finish up.
Because I'm getting the sense that you're going to talk to them.
Two people from each team, one person to read it and one person to present on your findings.
as a friend.
And then we can also talk to somebody else. So we have to and also talk to our boss.
I don't want to. Yeah.
She would consider you a friend. To come to you, so she would expect you to like to be like confident. So she would like expect you to fit both like positions as a friend and as a coworker.
They don't want to talk to me.
But Rahu is like respectful. When my dad talked to me, she came to me.
Would it be appropriate to be kind of late discussing this with
I didn't mean to do that. But now you.
Yeah, well, if you're making eye contact, but you're staring at the person, I'm going to just after a while myself too. I just want to end the conversation.
And what about the entry of the woman? Entry, fire
So push the
remind them.
Where is it inappropriate?
Like in my country, the name was Africa, and I don't offer entry. Has nothing religious, but like respect for women.
That's the way it is in some Asian cultures. And then eye contact is bad. It's so crazy to have to know all that different stuff.
We're already starting the process of getting someone. So that
All
best
right,
advice
you
would
gotta
be
keep it moving. Everybody ready? You guys good?
with the company.
You guys okay?
Be
Like
flexible.
we're like
Like show them that you're flexible.
You guys really still talking about this, or you talking about something else?
Oh, we're talking about this.
A lot of different opinions? Okay.
I'll present.
Okay, so, why don't we start with group one over here? Who's gonna read, the case study?
Given.
I'm afraid we're gonna run out of time. Who's gonna read the case study? Okay. Everybody, pay attention. We're gonna go ahead and start the presenting out.
Professor Courtney sometimes invites students to the board to solve problems before the class. She believes students learn more from solving problems themselves with her guidance than from passively watching her complete the process. But the same students, all white men and one black woman, always volunteer. She knows from the homework assignments that there are other women as well as a few international students who are also doing well and who should feel confident solving before the others. But if they don't want to participate, that is their choice. She also notices that some of the international students don't make eye contact, and it bothers her that they are so disengaged in the class. Why force them to contribute if they aren't really there?
So what are some of the things you guys thought about?
Well, some of the things we thought about was, well, we noticed the main issue here was obviously the lack of participation. So we figured that one of the reasons could be like just simply shyness.
Okay.
Like people could be afraid to go up to the board and try to solve a problem, and if they get it wrong, they might get embarrassed or feel like everyone else is looking down on them.
Okay.
So we figured like a solution could be that like the professor herself could come across as more friendly, more accepting of the students themselves, so that way they feel like even if they make a mistake, it's okay, at least they tried. And they just said that they put in an effort to do so. And the other issue was like with the eye contact from the international students. And we talked about this and cited that there's a culture on eye contact, and it's different for each country, because as for some countries, it's not appropriate to actually make eye contact with them. It's actually more respectful to not do that. So like the professor could try to understand that is the case, and try to tell them that, well, it also would help her to feel better. She at least understand that, and have them try to at least make some eye contact, because it's okay in the classroom to do so.
Okay.
And that's really about it for the most part.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things I highlighted was that last sentence where it says, she also notices that some of the international students don't make eye contact, and it bothers her that they are so disengaged. That's an assumption, right? That's your assumption that they're disengaged. That doesn't mean that they're disengaged. That's just what you're thinking as a professor. So I forgot who brought this up earlier, but someone was talking about how do you kind of fix this, and is it about having presence? Sometimes it's about educating the person who doesn't understand, right? So the other piece I would add is making sure that that disengaged thing is an assumption and that may not be true. Okay, perfect. It's group 2. This side? Okay.
We have case study 2, and it says an African American actuary decides that she wants to leave consulting because she wants to start a family and have a better work-life balance. She is high performing, high potential, and on the track to become a senior consultant in the firm. Lately, she has been disengaged and has come to talk to a peer about her concerns. You are the peer, you value her work and her friendship, and understand her point of view, but do not want her to leave. Not only will it impact her career, but it would be a loss to the company. She supports 3 of the major accounts that you work on. What are some of the things you would consider in preparing to have a conversation with her? Who else do you consider talking to, and why?
Okay, so we understand that this is a problem of trying to prioritize between family and work. She has already made a decision that family comes first, and she's assuming that the work she will have will give her more time with her family than the work she currently has, which might not be true. So as the friends, what we think is to present them or present her like with the common ground, advise her to try to balance out between the current work she has and the family, because it's saying she's on track to become a senior manager. So maybe that new position can be tailored to her new needs. Maybe she can work out, we can find a way to talk to her immediate boss if possible, or advise her to do so, or talk to somebody that can talk to her immediate boss, find a way to communicate with her immediate boss to tailor the new job to her needs.
Very unique way of thinking about that. What are some of the other things you guys thought about or talked about?
We felt she might lack self-awareness. Yeah, she might lack self-awareness. So that also supports the point that we raised.
Anything else? That's good. Very. I would have even approached it that way. So it's so cool that you thought about, well, maybe the senior role can be framed to make it work for her. I would have been thinking about, how do I tell someone that my friend wants to leave, and how can they help her? Or how do I go talk to HR, or how to go talk to my boss, and how do I would have been thinking about it probably from more of a selfish point of view, which is, if she leaves, I'm going to have all this work, right? And you were thinking about how to make it work for her. So I think that's so cool that you thought about it that way. It's really cool. Okay. 3 is which way? Over here. Okay.
Alright, this case study 3. Human resources come to you as a focus group and wants to hear about what's going on with new associates. They are hearing that people are not happy and want to know how to fix it, but do not know what's going on. As a team, you have your ear on the ground and you know what the real concerns are. The pay increase has been smaller, headhunters are calling you every day and offering more money, the stress level is high, and there's no diverse managers to help support you. Come up with how you will communicate to HR to get the key points across without being too emotional, yet make a compelling argument for change.
Okay, so what we talked about was, first of all, going to HR, not just filing complaints, but coming up with solutions. So the solutions we came up with were, for the high stress levels, we said HR should come up with a downtime, for example, happy hours, working lunch, and working hours should be defined. For example, like, we shouldn't have to stay at work too late. In fact, we shouldn't stay at work too late, maybe, for example, until 7. And then culture exchange programs and casual Fridays, for example. And as far as the headhunters calling us are concerned, they express the fact that we want to remain at the company and come up and perform a unanimous company evaluation. And to solve the smaller pay increase problem, introduce weekly bonuses instead of waiting until
weekly bonuses?
Yeah.
I want to work for that company.
And for the final one, the no diverse managers, come up with cultural exchange programs or open up more leadership positions so people can apply, and where different people can, where people from different backgrounds can apply. And then and then another way to solve the pay increase problem, the coupons and theme parks.
And like discounts at different things.
Right.
Yeah, to help offset. Okay. Fully discounts. That's good. Anything else?
That's it.
Was there a lot of debate or conflict in how you would approach this, since you had so many different people trying to resolve it? I actually meant to ask all the groups that.
No.
Just good conversation, good dialogue. Good dialogue. Okay. Last.
Case number 4. Your boss is a gay white male and you are the only diverse person on your team. Everyone seems to get along really well. You often wonder why the other team members are often asked to go have lunch, meet up for drinks after work, or get invited to golf. After months of this happening, you begin to wonder if you are being isolated because of your ethnic background. You get your work done, you always have high performance ratings, but you don't have close connections with the team. What do you do? And how would you frame a conversation with your direct manager without accusing him or the team?
Alright, when we decided this individual has a problem building relationships, He's doing good work, he's getting good performance reviews, so that's obviously not the problem. We decided that he could send an email requesting a meeting with his director, or he could take an informal route, which we decided would be the best way to go about things, just because we don't want to jump any conclusions about ethnic background discrimination or scare the boss in any way. So maybe you're getting off the elevator, you ask the individual what they did this weekend. You know that they like golfing because they've been going without inviting you. So you say, I've been golfing this week as well, we should go out sometime. So you're showing interest in what they enjoy doing. They're probably going to say yes. I mean, it's pretty messed up if they say no. And then if they say no, I mean, maybe you can start to explore those other discrimination things, but that's the route we chose to go about.
Hey, I heard you guys talking a lot, so I'd like to hear a lot about your conversation if there are different points of view.
I want to add one more thing about the gay white male boss. Just being black, I feel like a lot of times black people are conservative when it comes to things such as that. So, I mean, if he made the assumption that we weren't approving of his lifestyle, I wouldn't blame him. So, obviously...
Because it's a generalization.
It's a generalization. So, with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, I know a lot of times they have organizations and segments for gay individuals at the company, so maybe volunteer with that to let them know that you're interested. Definitely self-interest there, but it might work well for you.
Good solution. Anything else that you guys talked about? Nope. Any conflict in coming up with this, kind of what you thought? Any like so off the wall positions that you were like, yeah, it's real different, but okay.
I guess some people may have believed they didn't want to compromise. So, for example, not going to volunteer at that event
because of the personal beliefs.
Because of personal beliefs, or just refusing to, I guess, learn the game of golf, or something like that.
Okay. All right. These were really good responses. All of these, except the first one. Well, actually, it's probably fair to say it could happen too. But all the other three are pretty real. They're not real situations I know of that have happened. But I've taken examples of things I've seen in other companies that I know have happened and kind of put it all together. So these could happen at any case in time, especially number 3, where oftentimes you want to know what's going on with a specific group of people. So you're like, you know what, we have the Black Professional Network. Let's go talk to them and figure out what's going on, or you know, figure out what they're hearing. You know, why are people leaving and all that kind of stuff, or how do we keep people like yourselves? So these are pretty real. They could come up at any time, and so I just really wanted to get you comfortable with kind of trying to solve things that are outside of the technical realm of being an actuary in mathematical sciences, but still real life people issues. So you can either stay here for the next 15 minutes or come back to your seats, but we have 15 more minutes. I'm just going to spend the last 15 minutes talking about team building. Okay, so you want to just stay where you are? Everybody can see? Can you see them? Okay. This slide is blurry, but so we were talking earlier about teaming and how that's important going into the kind of corporate world. And so developing high performance teams kind of involves all these little different goals here. Teams should have a charter or have some expectations, run effective meetings, be focused on the customer. That could be internal or external, manage the team process, understand their roles and responsibilities, set goals, and kind of move forward. So good team characteristics are having a common goal and a mission, some accountability for getting the work done, collaboration and trust, shared leadership, and kind of energy, kind of shared energy. And you all just kind of demonstrated coming together quickly and being a team. So you had to quickly solve a problem. You all had a common goal, which was to present the information back out and come up with a solution, have some accountability for coming up with that, collaborate, quickly develop trust. So these are some of the great characteristics. Sometimes you're going to be in work teams, which is like a natural formation based on daily work, and then sometimes there's going to be task teams where someone says, okay, get together for 3 weeks and work on something. Then there's management teams, and when you become in manager and leadership roles, there's organizational and operational manager teams where you meet every week to try to solve solutions. Sometimes they're people problems, and sometimes they're technical problems. So some of the challenges of teams. Sometimes teams don't make really effective decisions, so they come up with decisions that can't actually be executed. There's a specialization or expertise needed that may not be represented on the team. There might be global competition. And sometimes the information age, people don't have the right technical skills to solve things. So the emotional intelligence of teams, and it was interesting to hear you say self-awareness, because self-awareness is a part of emotional intelligence, which is kind of this new leadership behavior, and it involves knowing yourself, self-awareness, being able to manage your emotions, so the self-management, kind of managing how you show up, relationship management, that came up in one of these solutions. Someone said, well, he doesn't have a way to build relationships, so understanding how you build and develop relationships is a part of emotional intelligence. Then social awareness, like how are you kind of showing up, how are you demonstrating that presence, and what are others saying about you. What else goes into social awareness is how are you showing up on Facebook? What's your social media profile? How are you branding yourself? And one of the things you all should know is that employers are really beginning to look a lot at your Facebook profile. So if it's not something you want people to see, then you should have all your settings set to private so that they can't go digging into your business and find out where you partied over the weekend. Okay? So how you show up in social media becomes a part of your kind of presence, if you will. The social media site for being in business is LinkedIn. So you'll have a LinkedIn profile for kind of where you work, where you go to school, your majors and all that kind of stuff, what kind of companies you work in. Facebook, of course, is the one that you do for fun. So make sure all your settings are correct so that your future employers can't dig in and find out all the dirt. All right. So stages of team development, and somebody brought this question up earlier. I'm trying to find him. Can't find him. You. About teams. So when teams start to form, they're in the forming stage, and in the forming stage, you're kind of coming together, figuring out roles, responsibilities, figuring out, getting to know people on the team, trying to figure out who you can trust. Then you go into storming. That's where conflict comes into play. You're challenging different solutions. You are still establishing trust, but now figuring out, there's a couple of people maybe I really can't trust. Then you kind of go normalize. So now all the goals are established. The people on the team know each other. Trust is kind of developed. And then you move into performing stage. Everybody's good. You're getting along. You're really executing on your ideas, and people kind of, really good solutions are coming out. But anytime the team changes, you go right back into this. So let's just say everybody's performing for 3 months and then a new team member joins or somebody leaves, you're right back over into step one, because you're trying to establish the trust again, establish the goals again, and trying to figure out kind of who does what. So this is kind of a cycle, but to your point, that forming stage where you're trying to establish trust, that happens all the time. And when you join a company, that's happening all the time. Who do you trust? Who do you talk to? Who do you tell about your weekend? Who do you communicate with? Who do you build relationships with? All that stuff happens when you're trying to form a team. And the quicker you get to the norming stage, the better you're going to feel, because then you're really operating at your best. You're bringing all your talents. You're sharing your ideas. There's not fear. You're not thinking someone's going to steal my idea. So the quicker you get to stage 3 is kind of the better the team, you as an individual performs, and so does the team. Are teams always better? They're not the answers for all management problems. Sometimes a team can actually cause more problems, such as confusion, because you have to come up with a solution and think of all these different, use all these different personalities, delay and poor decision making. But the best team is always going to be a diverse team, meaning there is representation of many different ideas. I can't think of his name, Scott Page, University of Michigan. He talks about how diversity leads to innovation. And a diverse team, meaning diversity of thought and diversity of ideas, not just diversity as far as ethnicity and gender. But a diverse team will always come up with a better solution than a homogeneous team. That's specifically because you're getting a good representation of different ideas. Okay? So effective team issues. Sometimes there's interdependence, which means sometimes the outcomes are determined by the actions of other team members. So to be effective, the structure of the team task should be cooperative independence. And then goals, team members should have common goals for team achievement. And then cohesiveness, membership is valued and members are drawn toward the team. So that means people understand they're on a team and understand the team has to go to the same goal. This really applies to like sports. And if you ever play basketball or football, you're all got the same goal. You're trying to move the ball down the court, or you're trying to score the touchdown. So anybody that's played sports is normally, well positioned to be a part of a good team because they come from that team sports background. Then you have roles and norms. Norms are the governing rules of behavior, so people kind of have to decide, how are we going to make decisions? How are we going to, structure this? Communication. Teams should develop an effective communication method. Communication should include listening, giving feedback, and then practice and a verbal comprehension. So we kind of talked about all those things today. So in conclusion, team members must internalize the concept that meaning is in people and not in words. Team members must have the patience, ability, and willingness to seek sufficient feedback to ensure that their words, their arguments, their recommendations, and their concerns are understood as intended. And that's kind of the whole seek first to understand, then be understood. It's really important when you're kind of navigating through business to try to make sure that not only do you understand what the other person is saying, but that they also understand kind of the framework and the background that you're coming from. Let's see. So let's start acting like a team. We must start acting like a team. From now on, I want everyone to do things my way. What if we thought of a better way to do things? That's your whole problem, newborn. You're always looking for trouble. So newborn's lesson. Now I understand. I only get to think when I agree with the boss. So what questions do you have for me as we wrap up our morning? What are some of the things that you've thought about? Yes.
Yeah, I understand that a good team is supposed to be a DISC, D-I-S-C.
Sure, like a mixture of all of the
right,
four.
okay. So now, do we know the consequences when one of the letters is dropped? Like if it is just I-S-C, what are the consequences for that?
The only consequence is that it's not going to be as innovative and creative because all four aren't represented, but it's not a bad thing because perhaps, so remember how I'm a DC? Perhaps someone else on the team, if the I is dropped, that might be someone else's secondary thing, you know what I mean? So they still have some of those qualities. Now, there are bigger consequences if you have a team that's all Ds. Because then you're not going to have that analytical skill. Then you're not going to have the team builder and, hey, let's come up with a solution. So you don't want a team of all Ds or all Cs, but if you're missing one, you're probably okay because that may be someone's secondary category.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, like if you are hiring and you recognize people of like the same talent, same degree, same everything, except this guy is a D, this guy is say a C, and in your team you maybe have C and S only. So which one of the two, like,
and
do we know which one
do
we
that.
take?
That's a very good question. Employers do try to make sure, this is called fit, right? So employers do make sure that they're looking at fit for the team. So if there's some deficiency, they're going to hire for that deficiency. So if everything's equal, but I really need the D, I'm probably going to hire the D.
How do you put which one you are on your resume?
Oh, this has nothing to do with it. You don't want this on your resume.
I know, instead of the employer's gonna... Instead, how do you feel?
Well, no, but I was just answering his question.
Okay.
There are some kind of assessments that people take for recruiting. You're never going to know what the results really are. They might say, we're looking for this, and we're going to do this assessment, and then however this person spits out, we're going to hire specifically for this. This is not a part of your resume. This is a part of kind of just understanding what your strengths are. So when you get inside of a company, if they use this tool, you may understand where you are and then how you fit into a team, but this is not necessarily a hiring tool. No. So it's nothing that you need to focus on there. What other questions do you have?
For instance, if an employer wants to pick on a director or maybe like somebody's supposed to be maybe an intern or something like that, somebody's supposed to be part of the team. And looking at these DX, which positions normally fits for like maybe a D? Maybe a D who is a leader normally would fit for somebody at the top.
Yeah.
And an I maybe for a team or something like that.
They span all roles. So a lot of leaders are D's, but a lot of leaders are I, S's, and C's. A lot of interns are D. You know what I mean? So they span across all roles. So you can't just say to be a leader you have to be a D, because you don't want all your leaders to be a D, right? So you can be a leader at any position. You just might have an opportunity to demonstrate those leadership skills differently depending on where you are. Last question. I think it's time for the next speaker to come up.
I have one.
Okay.
When you notice that maybe one person in the team is like overbearing, or how do you like?
We D's can be that way sometimes.
So how do you like kind of subdue maybe, or I don't know the right word, but how do you like get what I'm trying to ask?
That's tough because overbearing comes across in different ways. But I would just continue to speak at a softer tone so that you're demonstrating how you want to be communicated with. Because you can't tell somebody, tone it down, in a business environment. They are who they are, but you are who you are. But you can just say, let's just try to resolve this kind of calmly, or let's try to figure out a solution, and just continue to kind of have your calm presence, because in most situations, your calmness calms other people down. So it's not so much about changing that person as it is about monitoring yourself so that that person can adapt. Remember how we have to kind of teach other people how we want to be treated? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how that whole communication thing goes. We have to kind of help other people understand how we want to be communicated to. Okay? Thank you so much for your time this morning. I really, really enjoyed it.